Hello, thanks for joining me. I'm Carl Seibert. In our last video, we talked about keywording. And we talked about it abstractly. We talked about getting ready to keyword. Hopefully by the end of that video, we had a plan in place and in our hand, at least the beginnings of a controlled vocabulary of keywords that we could use going forward. This video is the first of a two-part set, and we're actually going to take our keywording plan and put it to use. We're going to look at keywording in Photo Mechanic. In this video, we're going to talk about basically all the kinds of keywording in Photo Mechanic that are not hierarchical, or as Photo Mechanic calls it, structured. And in the sequel, well, we'll do structured keywording in Photo Mechanic. I count 11 different ways you can keyword in Photo Mechanic. Probably nobody is ever going to use all 11 of them, but most of us are going to vary our keywording routine according to the particulars of our situation at the moment. Are we doing a one-off photo? Are we keywording a great number of photos? What kind of subject matter are we talking about? Is the keywording that we're doing going to be really simple, or is it going to be more involved? And so forth. Or just, hey, wherever we might be in the interface in Photo Mechanic has something for us. So we'll dive in here. You probably remember this folder of photos. This is a folder of demo photos that I've used before, used and abused, and they're worn and beaten and battered, but I haven't retired them yet. Let us assume that we are our imaginary photographer, Susie Photographer, and we're going to do some keywords in these photos. Right now, we have the IPTC info dialog up. That's the simple, more or less one photo at a time metadata dialog. That's sort of the basic building block metadata dialog in Photo Mechanic. And here we are in the keywords field, and we're looking at this picture of this lady that we remember from before. And in case you're not familiar with it, in this dialog, if you click and hold on the preview picture, it jumps up to big size. That can be really handy, particularly in cases like maybe you're working on screenshots where all your pictures kind of look the same and you want to make sure you're captioning the right picture. Anyhow, we have our lady here, and we will assign some keywords to her. Now, the simplest way to do this is to simply type keywords, keyword, comma, in the keyword field. But if you remember from last time, I said, don't do that. So I should listen to myself and don't do that. We want to be very consistent with keywords. We don't want to introduce variations. We don't want to introduce typos, because essentially that just amounts to lost data. If at all possible, when we're keywording, we should choose keywords from our controlled vocabulary or a subset of it so that we always do it the same way. For instance, this lady is wearing a hat. The keyword in Susie's keyword is hats in plural. And we talked about the decision about plural and singular last time, but the important point is we'll make it be the same every time by picking it, and we'll always get hats, and we won't have to remember whether it's hats or hat. So let's say that this picture is also fashion. Let's say it's also a product picture. And I already typed in portfolio because when we used these pictures before, we said this picture would be in Susie's portfolio. We okay it. And there it is. So that's the simplest case. But what about that flyout? How did those choices get in the flyout? So let's bring up the IPTC Stationery Pad for the sake of argument. I did that with Command-I on the keyboard. You can also use the image menu to bring up the Stationery Pad. And we have here in the Stationery Pad, we actually have a template, or a specific template that I was using when I was doing the screenshots for the blog post that goes with this very video. And indeed, we have screenshot in the keywords for this particular template. And that's the thing you can do. You can put you can put keywords in a template and apply them to images wherever you want. That's a completely legit thing. And then you can add to the keywords later for specific photos or whatever you want to do. But in any case, we have the very same flyout. So I can add keywords to this template in the same way. And in the flyout, I have the choice to edit keywords. Now this particular dialog, and the legend says IPTC keywords, even though we got to it by a function called edit keywords, is only able to be called from the flyout. That's a distinction that will be important later. That's the only way to get to this particular dialog. Now I'll turn my little highlighter on so that we can tour the dialog. We have two panes. We have a pane on the right, which Photo Mechanic calls the master keywords list. Don't get too hung up on that. This is not your whole controlled vocabulary. This is the list of keywords that's going to appear in that flyout. And it's also going to appear in the top pane of another dialog for applying keywords that's kind of similar to this one. So this is a topical keywords list that you might have for specific situations. You might have per client, or you might have one for studio pictures or one for landscapes or something. You want to keep this keyword list pretty minimal because of its use in the flyout. A dozen keywords, maybe 24 keywords, that's really kind of all that'll fit here. Now, on the left-hand pane in this dialog, Photo Mechanic calls the current keywords list. Now, these are the keywords that are on the photo that you're looking at when you called this dialog. The photo that was selected for the IPTC editor, or in this particular case, it's the template that happened to be in the stationery pad at the time. When I hit OK in this dialog, these keywords will be applied to the keyword field. Sort of just the behavior that you would expect. Now, here we have count them, two snapshot buttons for this dialog. I think this is the only place in Photo Mechanic where you have two snapshot buttons in the same dialog. Snapshot button on the left brings up snapshots for the keywords that are on the left in the current keyword list and that will be applied to the picture or template that you're working on right then. Snapshot button on the right brings up snapshots for the so-called master keyword list. And we can change in a click from different sets of snapshots. Notice they keep them all reasonably small to bring up in the master password. Excuse me, I cannot say keywords for some reason. To bring up in the master keywords list. Now, we can add keywords to the list in this field here, which works the same way it does in other dialogues in Photo Mechanic. Type something in here, hit add, pops into the list. Or we can delete them, or we can edit them. I could take WordPress, and if I wanted to, I could change the P to lowercase. I don't really want to do that because I want it to be spelled correctly, but I could. To add keywords to the current keywords list that'll go on a particular picture that I'm working on, let's get rid of the circle here. All I have to do is select them on this side and hit the button and move them over. So that's a pretty quick way of selecting a bunch of keywords if I need a bunch of keywords on a particular picture. But wait, there's more. If I clear both sides of this, and I can do that way, and I also have a snapshot that's almost blank. You can't have an absolutely blank snapshot, but I have this snapshot, it's just got a comma in it, so I can take that out. If I load a bunch of keywords in this master list side, and this is an early version of the actual keyword list from my personal snapshot collection. And I select some of these keywords, let's say from there to there, and I move them over to that side. And it's best to do this on a picture that you don't care about, but it really doesn't matter because I'm not going to commit these to the individual photos. And then, and I'll do it by selection this time, clear the keywords there, move these back, and look what I've done. I've just created a new master keywords list that was a subset of the one I started with. In other words, I can take my controlled vocabulary and with a little bit of editing for format, I can subset it to make master keyword lists, populate my flyout with little lists of keywords that are consistent with the ones in my controlled vocabulary. That's pretty cool. Now, as you can see, I'm using the snapshot function here to save all of this stuff. That might cause you some concern because in a lot of programs, you don't want to save your data that you've worked on really hard as presets because they're a little bit ephemeral and they might get lost. But let's look at this. In Photo Mechanic, we've seen this before. If we go to a snapshot and we option click on a Mac or alt click on a PC, go to a snapshot. There we go. And option click on a Mac or alt click on a PC. It's going to open up a file manager dialog and it's going to show us where these snapshots live. And these things are saved to disk as .snap files. And you can copy them, back them up, migrate them, move them. If I get sick of Suzy demo keywords being in this particular snapshot pull down, I can move it and store it on a folder on my machine and bring it back later when I want to use it again. So snapshots are a sturdy, stable sort of format to hold your data in Photo Mechanic. You don't have to worry about them, and you can manipulate them in sort of interesting ways. However, you can also, from this dialog, export your master keywords list. And if you do that, we'll cancel that export because we have one right here. We see that what we've got, it's just a flat text file. Bunch of keywords, each keyword is on a new line. If we wanted to import our real master keyword list, our complete controlled vocabulary, or a subset of it, we could take that file, and it's probably going to look like this. This is a structured keyword list in a format defined for Photo Mechanic, and it works for some other programs in the very same format. And it's structured with tabs to indicate the levels in the hierarchical keyword structure. And we'll see some of the keywords in here are in curly brackets. Now, those are synonym keywords if we're talking about hierarchical keywords. For our purposes, we just want a flat list. So we can fix the curly bracket thing really pretty quickly in our text editor by finding curly brackets. There's the right curly bracket. We'll replace it with nothing. And then we'll do the left curly bracket and replace it with nothing. And we'll save our file. And we will go back to Photo Mechanic. We will go back to this dialog. And we will import it. And voila! It strips out all of the tab formatting. We took out the curly brackets that denote synonyms, and we are left with a couple of keywords, or would-be keywords, in straight brackets. Now, those are labels for Photo Mechanic's structured keyword list. And if we wanted to, we could just we can edit off the straight brackets and the tilde, and we can turn them into keywords, or we can just delete them. And hey, we've now got our whole our whole controlled vocabulary, or part of it, imported to use into this list, which we can then subset. Now, if you'll notice, we have some duplicates, and that's because of the synonym thing. Or more correctly, it's because there are synonyms that appear in different places in the hierarchy in that particular list. Doesn't matter. Here's a trick. Move them over, delete them, move them back, and Photo Mechanic has stripped all the duplicates. Is that cool or what? So there. That's how you can use the Edit Keywords dialog in Photo Mechanic. And I think we're up to number 4 or 5 or so of all the various different ways that we can apply keywords. So let's cancel out of this. And let's take a look at this IPTC Stationery Pad again. Let's go back, and we have our ladies here. And we need to apply this keyword, as we usually do with keywords, to more than one photo. Probably, in most cases, we'd be applying our keywords to more than just 3 photos of the same subject, but kind of a batch of photos. Either way, the flyout in the IPTC editor dialog and the Edit Keywords dialog itself only work on a single picture, but we saw that we can work on the snapshot dialog. So let's take a look at that. Let's clear our snapshot dialog, and we're going to check just the keywords box. Now, turn on Mr. Highlighter again. Here we have a tiny little plus sign and a tick box beside it. This is append. And in each keyword dialog in Photo Mechanic, you're going to have the choice of appending your keywords to whatever's in the keyword field, or overwriting. A very important distinction. Most of the time, you're going to want to append. Sometimes, you're going to want to overwrite. So I would say 90% of the time, you want this thing set at append, but not always. You just have to be really careful to make sure you know what's chosen. In this particular case, we highlighted our 3 instances of our lady in the hat, and we've turned on only the keywords field in the IPTC Stationery Pad, and it's blank. And I'll apply it, and we've just emptied the keywords field on this picture for all 3 instances. So that was pretty cool. Now I'll make sure that we turn append back on, because that's kind of my personal default. That's where we want to leave it. And we'll choose some keywords for this lady, and we will apply. Now, we're only applying the keywords field. We're not going to touch the caption or the copyright information or any of the other fields that we have applied to these photos. And most of the time, you'll keyword last after you've done captions and stuff. So this is probably the way it will work in real life. We apply with the stationery pad. And there we have it. We have applied these keywords to these photos. Now, if we leave append selected, and we can add a couple of more, and I'm doing those just randomly, we'll just do a couple of more keywords. Boom, we'll apply them. And as you can see, we've now added those to our keyword mix as well. Now, let's just say, for the sake of argument, that we have some pictures selected, and we just want to apply keywords to selected pictures with no muss, fuss, or bother. We're done with all the rest of our metadata authoring, and we just want to add some keywords. So let's see how we'll do that. We have our 3 pictures selected. Now, if we do Command K, or from the image menu, the keywords panel, now we get this. I'll turn Mr. Highlighter back on. This panel looks a lot like the Edit Keywords panel, except it's vertical instead of horizontal. On the top, we have a pane full of keywords. We have the same editing mechanism that we had before. And on the bottom, we have an applying field, similar to the current keyword list in the other dialog. And we have some controls. Here's our append. We can append or replace. And we have a button to apply. It applies to selected photos. And we have a snapshot button, which if we press, guess what? We have the very same selection of snapshots that we had in the Edit Keywords dialog. So we'll set these back to Susie's Demo Snapshots, or Susie's Demo Keywords. I keep saying snapshot when I mean keyword, and I don't know why. Okie dokie. There we go. We'll deselect all those. And this dialog works pretty much the same way. We select keywords in the top, and they appear in the bottom. Or if we want to type things in, which we shouldn't do, but if we want to just add a keyword by typing, we can type it in right here. Or we could use the editor, add it up there, and then select it to pop it down there. Now you'll notice if I select only one keyword, I only get one keyword to apply. And if I multi-select, I get a collection of them to apply. Hit the button, it applies it, that's that. So that is yet another way to apply your keywords. And of course, the IPTC snapshot, take it and paste it, works with keywords as well as every other field. The snapshot takes a snapshot of every field that has a value in it. So if you've done one photo and you simply want to copy all of your IPTC fields from that photo to another, you can use the copy-paste buttons in the IPTC editor, or you can use the snapshot. That's fair game for keywords as well. So there you have it. We've keyworded with all of the so-called flat keywording methods in Photo Mechanic. Next time, we'll take a look at the hierarchical, or as Photo Mechanic calls it, structured keywording. Once again, I'm Carl Seibert. Reach out in the comments here or on the blog or on social media. And until next time, mind your metadata.